Disclaimer. Any of the guidance offered by the podcast host, myself, or the podcast guests is our own guidance. We are not liable for any of the actions the podcast listener decides to do. Welcome back to the Self-Esteem and Confidence Mindset podcast and me, Johnny Pardo. And today I welcome Arjun Dhingra to the show. And I'm excited to dive into our conversation today and hear all about the work that Arjun's doing in the world. So just a quick introduction to Arjun. Arjun is a two-time TaeKwon-Do world champion and 25-year mortgage advisor. He's also the founder of the LFG Society and host of the LFG Energy PODCAst. Welcome to the show today, Arjun.
Thanks, Johnny. I appreciate it, brother.
Absolutely. No, I'm glad to have you on. And yeah, looking forward to hearing about you know, some of these things, what you're doing with TaeKwon-Do, what you've learned maybe from the mortgage industry, kind of the mindset behind business, all sorts of things we could go down today. But I'd love to know, first of all, what is the LFG Society and how did that come about?
Yeah, it stands for exactly what you think it stands for. Just let's fucking go. So I used to say the phrase a lot, just like everybody does. But I would say it a lot when I was coaching the athletes. I would even say it when I was an athlete, because it was a bit of a primer. It would kind of get you fired up. You say something to yourself, whatever it is, to pump yourself up before you do something big. So we would say it a lot as coaches, and the athletes really gravitated around it. And I thought, you know what? I love the phrase, not that I own it or anything, but I thought, well, everybody talks about different kinds of energy. Well, what about LFG energy? Because that's an energy in and of itself. So I just kind of coined the phrase. I had a good friend of mine who was one of the athletes I coached, who was a graphics designer. I had him come up with a logo while we were in Amsterdam for the World Championships in 2022. And this is what he came up with, was that logo, right? So the LFG energy logo he came up with, and I was like, I like it. Now, I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I had no idea. I just had it there. And then over time, through some interesting stories and events and crossroads I was at, it has morphed into LFG Energy Presents, which is an event hosting platform. It's moved into the LFG Energy Podcast, which is my show, stories about resilience and beating the odds. And then the LFG Society is our private online community. And it's a community of entrepreneurs that I started about 2 years ago. And it's been a lot of fun growing it. It's very industry agnostic. We have athletes, we have creatives, we have real estate, finance people, attorneys, all kinds of different walks of life that are in there. And it's really focused through our online portal, as well as monthly calls that we do on just being better, focusing on the mind and the heart, and execution later and secondary. So many groups and think tanks or masterminds, particularly here in the US, are all focused on execution, which is why they're very expensive, because you're paying for an immediate result. You'll pay $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 to be part of a mastermind, and they're great. I'm part of 2 of them, and they're well worth it because you're going to get tactics and strategies and things you can implement to turn business around. And I didn't want to compete in that space because there's already fantastic ones out there. And again, I'm a student of many of them, but nothing was addressing this and this. I thought, well, what if we had a space where people could get a bit more mindset development, a bit more frameworks on building confidence and how to get into the right rooms? If they are full and complete, or at least fulfilled in these areas, then the business part will be even better. So we kind of created this to help almost supplement everyone else's involvement in everything else they do. It was never meant to replace anything else. So it's, again, an online community of entrepreneurs, thought leaders, all kinds of different people. We do a monthly call with generally a high profile author. A lot of, people you and I were talking offline about some mutual friends that we had, that some of these people have been speakers in our group for those monthly calls. And then just creating some proximity to those people where they can ask questions of them and get to know more. And that simple shift over these last 2 years has had such a transformational effect on so many of the people that are part of the group. It's grown their confidence. It's created other opportunities. And that's what makes me happy about it, that we're doing the right thing here.
I love that. Yeah, just like a community together of like-minded people, right?
That's it. That's exactly. You nailed it.
And how do you feel like, in terms of, you mentioned some of them sort of like building their confidence, how do you feel like the community's helped them in that aspect to build their confidence?
Well, I think for all of us, it's one of the bigger human needs, right? Like, is to belong to something and to be seen. And that's something that I know as a coach, from dealing with athletes for 10 years, or just even as an athlete myself. When someone sees you and doesn't try a one-size-fits-all approach, but actually understands you and knows how to get more out of you, it's like very powerful in terms of what it unlocks. And I've been fortunate to be around people that saw potential in me and saw characteristics and traits in me that could turn into so much more. And so they nurtured it. They poured water on that seed basically and helped it grow, and it unleashed things. It wasn't just like do it this way, one size fits all approach. Like I call it curriculum teaching or curriculum coaching. It's like why schools are having a harder and harder time being seen as like, a successful venue for everyone, because everyone has a different learning pattern, different response pattern. So I thought, that was something big for me. I wanted to make sure that I could do the same for other people. When I see people and recognize their unique differences and strengths and weaknesses and do that in a group level, I'm able to bring stuff out of them. And this community is kind of fostering that for everyone. So it's not just me doing that, it's their peers. So people feel a sense of acceptance. They feel a sense of being seen, a sense of being heard. And that ultimately is giving them confidence, because then they feel some level of value, some self-worth. It's raising the confidence. And when you have that as a human or as an entrepreneur or whatever it is you're trying to do, it's limitless what you can accomplish from there. But until you get that part dialed down, or at least like unblocked, I should say, it's difficult for someone to really realize their potential. So that's where we've been doing it. That's where I've seen, again, the biggest transformation in people, and why I'm really like proud that we have this and what we're creating here and continuing to build.
I love it. I love it. And are there, like you mentioned, there's all sorts of people in your group, athletes, you got like different professions, different businesses, all sorts there. Is there like, I know, like you said, there's not a one size fits all approach to anyone, but are there any like kind of patterns that you've seen are common in kind of like the blocks of people and their mindset that you've helped through?
Yeah, I think it's being kind of stuck, doing lots of right things. It's like the athlete that just won't get in the right shape. They go to the gym every day. They eat okay, not bad, but not perfect. So it should be fine. They're watching their calories, they're like doing things, but something's off, and it's something that's maybe not as pronounced, and being able to find it. Maybe it was up, you peel back some layers, it's sleep. An extra hour of sleep a day would probably be what that athlete, and then you see the transformation. Then you see the pounds fall off. Then you see the metabolism speeding up, right? Like it's a simplified example, but for us, what I've noticed is a lot of these entrepreneurs or people that are doing things, they were all doing great things. It just necessarily wasn't adding up on the bottom line, or it wasn't getting them the results they wanted. So I like to dig deep and try and figure out, like, why is it that somebody does better than someone else, given that they might work at the same company, they have access to the same information, the same economy, the same interest rates, the same sales tools, technology, whatever it is. Why is it that somebody does better than somebody else? Like, what is it? It's not just, oh, this person's more motivated. No, it's more than that, right? And it generally comes down to a block of some kind, an inability to execute, an inability to adapt. And I really recognized that when I was listening on a panel. I was listening in the audience to a panel of a billionaire. He was in the biotech space, and he was answering a question, and somebody else raised their hand and said, "What's the difference between you and the rest of us? How did you get to where you're at?" And all of us kind of looked at each other like, simple question, but it's also the one we all want to hear. I'm thinking to myself, I want to hear this answer. Like, what is he going to say? What makes him so different from the rest of us? And he said, very simply put, guys, I'm no different than anyone here. In fact, if we gave an IQ test to this entire audience, 90% of you are going to have a much higher IQ and be more intelligent than I am. I promise you. He says the difference between where I'm at and where you're at, which is not a state of permanence, you could easily do this, is my speed of execution. I act with 70% certainty. I don't wait for 100. If I have 70% certainty on something, I will take action, and I'll figure out the other 30 along the way. And if it doesn't work, I'll pivot. But that's what I do. By the time you've deliberated over it, and all of us in the audience at that time felt, and I'm one of them, for sure, because I still suffer it from time to time. And I think people that are listening to this show might as well. You wait for 100% certainty before you try and make a big move, and it never comes. That's why the New Year's resolution never gets done. That's why sometimes we don't finish that big project. That's why something that you thought would take you 6 months, it's been 6 years, you're still working on it. It's because you wait for the perfect time. There isn't a perfect time. What you need to have is the optimal time. And that optimal time, by this billionaire, and so many other people say it as well, was 70%. So that had a profound impact on me. And that's something I've kind of carried forth in the group, because I think a lot of our people that joined suffered from that same level or ceiling of inaction. They couldn't take the action because they were just waiting for something that was never going to come, quite frankly, which is 100% certainty. And then the second trait in this group, which he said, was that I have very high AQ, adaptability quotient. AQ is the cousin or the sister or the distant relative of IQ and EQ, but it's adaptability quotient, the ability to adapt as soon as you recognize that things are kind of not going well. This is something again, most of us suffer from. How many times have you been doing something? You're like, it'll work. I have to just keep at it. And you're choosing to ignore the signs that are telling you this isn't going to work. You need to pivot. But you just either, whether it's ego or it's pride or stubbornness or maybe just naivete, you just keep doing it. And then you look back when you did eventually either fail or had to pivot from it. And you said, I should have done that so much sooner, right? Just because so many of us just don't want to give up because you associate shame with that or that you'd failed. No, no, no. There's no shame in adapting or pivoting. You know, if anything, it's something to be celebrated, and so few people do it. So the speed of execution, the ability to adapt, that's something that we really also have as part of our group. And what I've noticed the change in people. And when you asked to bring it full circle to your question, like, what do I notice that was kind of blocking some people? It's that, you know, it's like they're not getting things done. So how did we figure out why they're not? Comes down to those two things, either speed of execution, adaptability quotient, or a combination of the two.
Super interesting. And the speed element as well.
Yeah, it
I
is.
guess that comes down to making decisions quick. I know a lot of people, I'm really glad this has come up because I've been guilty of like, right, I've got to make the right decision. It's got to be 100% right. And I know lots of people I've spoken to are kind of like, and I've been in the sales industry as well. And lots of people are like, oh, I don't know, you know, you get like very caught in the head. So definitely witnessed that. Yeah. How can, like, from your experience, how can someone work through just being very scared of uncertainty?
Well, I think you have to figure out what it is. Go back a little deeper, or peel back some layers and figure out, or ask yourself, like, what is it that you're feeling with this uncertainty? Is it fear? Is it shame? Like, get really specific about the emotions or the feelings around it. And I call it like kind of the self-analysis or doing therapy on yourself, because if you can figure out what's actually really holding you back. You say it's uncertainty. That's the simple diagnosis as to why you haven't taken the eye. I'm just uncertain about, but why are you uncertain? Like, let's peel that back. Okay, uncertain is a given, but is the uncertainty rooted, or what is it manifested in? Is it just fear? Are you afraid of being embarrassed? Are you afraid of how you'll be looked or judged? Are you judging yourself? The only way to really fully confront uncertainty is to first identify the emotions or feelings or, you know, specific answers as to what's causing it. It might be a combination of things. Once you've done that, then you can get somewhere. Because, okay, you know, suppose it's fear of being embarrassed or fear of rejection. Okay. Now I need to ask myself the questions. Well, I'm afraid of being rejected. I'm uncertain to bring this to the marketplace because I don't want to be rejected by, like, sales is the biggest thing, right? What's the biggest reluctance in sales? It's rejection. Or even let's think about it even in dating. Like, you don't want to approach someone because you're afraid of being rejected and saying no, or someone saying no or rejecting you, and then you would personalize that. But if you stop and ask yourself, like, what's the worst thing that happens? Play it out in your mind. Like, if I was to get rejected, if I was to be turned down, if I was to be told no, did anything happen to me? Am I any worse off? No. It's just, I'm just feeling this fear of, like, I don't want to feel that. Well, typically, if you're feeling fear or some of these emotions that are around uncertainty, it's a sign that you're actually onto the right path because something really matters to you. It's important to you. Otherwise, you'd feel nothing anyways. So I choose to see uncertainty. And once we identify the feeling that's actually kind of fueling the uncertainty or labeling it as actually a good thing. And it's a reminder, like, no, don't feel bad about this. I'm feeling this fear of rejection. I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling reluctant, whatever it is, embarrassed, because this really matters to me. It's important to me. And so that's a good thing. That means there's some pride associated with this. So celebrate that rather than kind of, you know, speak ill of it or make yourself feel bad. And then just tackle and ask yourself the honest questions. What's the worst thing that could happen? And everything that we all want is on the other side of certainty. All the success, everything. Like, going back to the whole billionaire quotient there, or example, right? Like, any billionaire, any multimillionaire, any successful person will tell you, like, you will always have levels or walls of uncertainty that you'll hit in your day. I get uncertain multiple times a day about something that I'm doing. 80% of my day as an entrepreneur in my space is shit. It's rejection, it's this, it's loss, it's financial implications, whatever. 80% of every day I work, it's that. 20% is great. The 80%, all of it either leads to or began or was, you know, originally manifested in some level of uncertainty. So we're all going to face it. Everyone's got it. It doesn't really go away. But if you lean into it, see it for what it is, that it's actually probably a good sign once you get to the root cause, and ask yourself those tough questions. That's how you deal with uncertainty. And you develop, it's almost like a muscle that you kind of develop in the skill set of being able to deal with uncertainty regularly. Because you, me, Johnny, everyone listening to this, uncertainty is never going to go away. You'll always have to be confronted with it. Doubts, these things, like they're going to keep happening. But if you're really well equipped at dealing with it, you're going to move on past each wall of uncertainty much faster, much more efficiently, and with far less energy or output, because you'll just kind of train your mind how to navigate through this.
I love that. And Arjun, you're doing a lot. You're like serving a community. You know, you got the family. You've done TaeKwon-Do. You're a coach. You know, you've worked in like 25 years of being a mortgage advisor. You're doing a lot. Is there anything, I'm just curious from you, that helps you prime yourself to be able to deliver all of this to people?
Yeah, I think it just comes down to like purpose and what makes me feel fulfilled. I know that my purpose is to serve. And I get my greatest sense of fulfillment and joy in knowing that I've had some kind of an impact or help move the needle or affect change in one person. If I do that, then it was a good day, right? And sometimes the only people I do that for are my children, my 2 daughters. Then that's a good day, as far as I'm concerned, because it's moving me towards something, right? Which is what the meaning of life is: move towards something, create something, leave some type of small but lasting impact. So that's what kind of keeps me going, is knowing that. Because yes, I wear a lot of different hats in the day that all begin and end with being a dad, you know, and a husband. Like, I have a family, so that's important. But everything that happens in the middle, it's a wild roller coaster. But if I show up knowing, whether it's to serve community or to speak or to host a guest on my podcast or be on a fantastic podcast like this one, whatever, I have to remember what's really my main purpose in life. It's to serve or be in service to others. And that's what makes me fulfilled, is if somebody listening to this took something away from this and sends you a note, Johnny, saying, I love that guy Arjun from San Francisco, he was great, then I did what I was supposed to do here today. You know, so that's my hope, is that one person takes something away, some nugget from this, and it improves their life.
I love that, driven with like purpose and the willing and wanting to serve. And that's kind of what's getting you going and attaching to that.
That's it. Yeah. Not attached to any specific outcome other than just, you know, like I said, just being there to serve.
Serve. Yeah, absolutely. And you go through like a lot in the day, I'd imagine. You mentioned like 80% earlier, you said, can sometimes be in your day of things, challenges coming up, maybe a bit of rejections or or financial challenges. Is there a way that you kind of unwind some of those emotions or work through or process any of that?
You know, I think you have to come to, as cynical as this might sound, and it's not cynical, but it'll come off that way. You just have to expect that these things are going to happen. I think the biggest challenge for most all human beings, the biggest problem, is that they think they shouldn't have any problems. So the moment you have problems, you're like, there's something wrong here. You know, this job sucks, this marriage sucks, this relationship sucks, this business partnership. There's just nothing but problems. Problems are opportunities, right? They're challenges. And the more you solve them, the more problems you're confronted with in a day that you solve, the stronger of a human being you're becoming, a better entrepreneur, the better leader, because that's what life is. It's challenges. You can choose to see it as this negative thing and then ask, why do I have these problems? Why is this happening to me? Or you can see it the other way, right? The great Tony Robbins line: it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. Like, this is an opportunity here. And I know that sounds silly and it can be a bit cliche, but I've just kind of trained myself, and I'm still a work in progress at it, but knowing that 80% of my day is going to have some kind of challenge. I mean, today was up there. Today might be 90. I woke up this morning with certain emails and things, and like we got started pretty much at the 90% quotient. So I've got to find a way when the day ends to focus on the 10, but it's just, you know, it's just part of it. I mean, but that's what also makes it so great to be a human being or an entrepreneur or a business person or a podcast host or whatever, is that you beat these odds and you still find ways to keep going forward. So I think that's what we have to recognize in life, is like, stop viewing problems as like a reason or a sign that maybe you're on the wrong path or you're in the wrong deal or you're in the wrong commitment. That's not it at all. They're all opportunities.
I like that. Just not the expectation that we shouldn't have any problems. Yeah.
So true, right? A therapist asked me that one time. You know, she said, I was working with her at a point when I just retired in Taekwondo. So it was 2014. And I went to her, not at a point of conflict or crisis in my life, but I actually went because I wanted to keep experiencing these like breakthroughs. I was single at the time, and you know, I knew there was new chapters for me. I was very wildly optimistic and excited about the future, which had no definition to it, which is what made it very exciting. So I went to her, and the very first session, she worked with a lot of entrepreneurs and people in the startup culture, which is very prevalent here in San Francisco. There's like specialized therapists and coaches that work with people who are in this very specific and nuanced grind and how it affects them. And so I'd found her online. She was fantastic, and I'm really glad I did work with her for a number of years and still keep in touch. But the very first session, She says, there's no right or wrong answer to this, but I want you to answer for me or take a moment to think, what is it that makes somebody happy? Like, what makes people happy? Like, what's the difference between a happy or an unhappy person? I thought for a second because it kind of stumped me for a bit. And we took some time and then conversed. And then I had some more time, like just kind of a moment of silence that went off in thought. And I said, well, I think it just kind of comes down to two different kinds of people. Those who go through life expecting and those who go through life noticing. Those who go through life with expectations are always going to be unhappy because, as you know, Johnny, very well, like your expectations are not going to be met, right? If you have high standards and expectations of everything around you, they will let you down, right? Because they don't have the manual to operate according to your standards. Everyone's doing their own thing. Things are happening, right? If I expect that it's going to be a perfect day and I've selected an outfit to wear today, and then I go outside and rain, or it's raining, not I'm raining. I go outside and it's raining, like that's just the way it is, right? I expected it to be better, and now it's not. So therefore it's a shit day. No. But those who go through life noticing everything around them and not having expectations of things are able to kind of adapt and just go with it and just notice that there's great things going on around them all the time. It's just what you choose to focus on. Those people are happy and those people aren't. She didn't tell me whether my answer was right or wrong, but she said that's a good answer because I want you to keep that very personal to you. And I've just stuck with it since 2014, right? There's just two kinds of people in this life. Those who go through life noticing and those who go through life expecting. And the noticers are the ones who are most happy. The expectors are always being let down. They're always offended. They're always upset. They've always had a shit day. Nothing's going their way because no one's going to meet your expectations. The world just can't do it. So that's my definition of it.
I like that. Expectations. Speaking of Tony, I remember he said something to draw expectations for appreciation.
Yeah, that's it. That's a great line.
I love that. What you mentioned about retiring from Taekwondo in like 2014. Now obviously you're a very busy like entrepreneur doing a lot of things. Were there any like lessons, like maybe a couple or a few like key lessons you learned or things you're able to take from Taekwondo to business?
Well, you know, in the years that I was competing and then the 10 years I coached after that from 2014 to 2024, when I stepped down as coach, I'll tell you, like, there are two things that I would always find very prevalent in the athletes that would either end up as a gold or silver medalist. And I say silver medalist because nobody ever honors a silver medalist. But in Taekwondo, much like most sports, the difference between the gold medalist and the silver medalist is so small sometimes. It's a point, it's a fraction, it's an inch, it's one step, it's a mistake that could have easily not been made the next time around, right? The difference between a bronze medalist and the gold and silver medalist is wide because you only went as far as the semifinal. You didn't make the final, but to make the final and to be there, like it could have easily been flipped. So I would always ask a lot of questions of gold medalists and silver medalists because I'm very fascinated by people. And even as a coach, I would observe it and notice it. But there was two things from there in Taekwondo and martial arts that have translated into sport. Number one is amongst all these people, there's a very high degree of mental toughness. And I don't say mental toughness in the old school way, like how I was raised or like the sports that I played with my football coaches where they would just tell you to shake it off and be tough and be resilient, but never feel anything. I think it's important to feel, it's important to process, but you could still be mentally tough and still have emotions attached to it and not like sweep it under the rug, which again is kind of the old world way of doing it. And the better definition of mental toughness that I've come up with or that I heard from a coach, a well-known coach here in the United States in football, US football, was mental toughness is defined as being your best regardless of circumstance. Be your best regardless of circumstance. Everyone who's winning, you could point out and say, well, that's easy for him. He doesn't have shit going on in his life. I'm going through that. No, you don't know that. In fact, that guy probably has a lot of things, or girl's got a lot of things going on in their life. They might be going through divorce, taking care of a sick parent, dealing with financial ruin. They're just able to be their best regardless of the circumstance, right? So mental toughness, number one. And then the second thing that we all have to have in business that came from sport was you have to have an unshakable belief in yourself. You have to believe because of the time and the commitment to your craft that you are the very best at what you do. It doesn't mean you're going to win every time, but when you step out there, you got to believe that you're the best in the world at what you do, or the best in your market, the best in your school, the best on the pitch, the best in your neighborhood, whatever it is that you're doing, have that belief. And if you don't quite have it, continue to work to have it. Because if you don't believe it, no one else is going to believe it. And that's the only way you're going to at least have a fighting shot of success or winning or achievement, is to believe that you are the best at what it is you do, not in an arrogant way, but just in a confident way, in a very quiet, kind of self-absorbed, not in a negative sense, but self-absorbed way, just this quiet confidence about yourself that you believe you are the absolute best. I competed in 3 world championships 2 of them I won gold medals in, the front one and the back one when I retired. The middle one I lost abruptly in the first round. I will tell you, in all 3, I believed I was the best in the world when I stepped out that day. Because of everything I'd done, I had left no stone unturned, left nothing to chance. I was fully prepared. Sometimes things just don't go your way. The universe has another plan, or God has another, vision for you that day. It just doesn't work out. But mental toughness and a high, unshakable belief in self, those are things that I've taken from sport that have translated into business. Because again, talking about what we were mentioning earlier, right? Like 80% of the day being shit. Mental tough, I still have to show up and be my best regardless. I like to be here for your audience. I want to be my absolute best, regardless of what's happened prior to me hopping on this call with you, which was loads of shit. It's fine. I'm going to be my best here regardless of circumstance. I'm going to bring it, right? And then also just the belief in myself. So those 2 things, if I can leave people with that, I want them to just take that into whatever it is they're doing.
No, beautiful. I love that. It just remind me of the actor Anthony Hopkins said something and really helped me in an area. He said, keep acting and then working on that belief like so much, like it in something. If you know Anthony Hopkins, he was just
Isn't it Sir Anthony Hopkins? Yeah.
saying act like you believe, and
he's an incredible actor. Like one of probably one of the greatest of his generation, or any generation for that matter. He's timeless. But yeah, I remember that line as well.
Yeah, unshakable belief. Yeah, Arjun, so many golden nuggets you shared with us today from your experience, from your community. I'd love to know, as we wrap up today, where the listener can find you. If they want to reach out, find out about your community or your podcast, all these things you got going on. Is there maybe a final point you'd like to share with us today?
No, I just would say that, where you can find me is on Instagram. That's the easiest place, at Arjun Mortgage, ARJUN Mortgage, all spelled out. One word, no spaces. It's me that answers my DMs. So send me a note there. And I'd love to connect with you and reply back and just hear what's going on in your world. Anyone who's listening, just feel free to reach out. But just know, as a final takeaway, I would just stick with what we just talked about, right? Just everyone just be your best regardless of circumstance. The world is going to deliver all kinds of shit your way day to day, hour to hour, some more than others. It's just kind of, that's what we live in. Stop viewing problems as things that you shouldn't have and just lean into them and embrace them for what they are, which is opportunities. As cheesy as it might sound, that little reframe or just shift in how you're viewing things, the lens at which you're seeing the world through. If you can do that, it's going to make for a lot more better days and just, creating things. And it's infectious. All of us want to be around and are attracted to and drawn to people that operate like this, because they are light. And if you do it enough, you yourself will become the light and start attracting great things. So that's what I'll leave everyone with.
Amazing. And to have a look at more of Arjun's work and get in touch, I will leave his Instagram below as well, so you can grab that in the show notes. So massive thank you for coming on and sharing your time with us today, Arjun.
I appreciate it, brother. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So that concludes our episode for today. And remember to lead with your heart and not with fear.